What are the main subjects in your book, and what do they mean for how people would do things in their lives from this point forward?
The purpose to write the book was to describe the problem, which we just talked about for the last hour. You have to understand the problem before you can understand the solutions that are going to be required. It's a moot point to just talk about the problem and then walk away. That's no good for anybody. The changes we're going to experience in this moving forward, literally, it's a reset button for our society. And that is no joke, really no joke the way that's framed right there and phrased. Things are going to start collapsing around. The movement of money is going to focus into certain segments, and the economy is absolutely going to contract in many ways, shapes, and forms. With all the money printing that's happening right now and the reckless spending, and they're trying to prop up everything falsely with, overnight on the repo market, or the overnight rates where banks lend to banks, or they lend to ETFs or hedge funds or bond buyers or whatever it is. This is so false, and it's just being propped up until it's not anymore. And when it's not anymore, there's a lot of conjecture out there that it'll be the biggest crash since the Roman Empire. And this kind of reduction of 80 to 90% off all the markets in a short amount of period of time globally, the supply chains are going to lock up, and you either had prepared and gotten your ducks in a row, and you got your seeds and the things you need for water. Masks, I keep coming back to these Australian fires. I am shocked at the amount of people that didn't have masks. So myself seeing these Australian fires, I went out and bought a couple boxes thinking, you know what, I don't have those either. I better go buy a bunch of masks just in case there's a volcanic eruption, some kind of weird dust storm comes. Who knows what's going to happen?
Regular dust masks, right? You're talking about?
Yeah, the regular 3M dust masks are 2.5 ppm. The ones that the firefighters wear down there, that you see them all the time in California, Australia, wearing the same masks. They're the white ones that curve around your face. But it's not just one layer, it's two layers inside. You have an inside layer.
Do they hold on pretty good? I've seen holes around the sides sometimes.
Yeah, again, that's the same thing. Every face is a little bit different. It's set for the standard face, I guess.
Right.
But think about your own medicines. Like if you are on medication and the supply chain locks up because of an economic contraction, you're going to have to think of either natural foods or natural medicines to supplant what you get from a pharmacy in a tablet. That's why, think as food as medicine. So to train yourself, what foods contain those kind of active ingredients that the medicine tablets are made from? Because everything originally was from a plant that they reconstructed in the lab, and they took that one specific active part out of it and then replicated that and made a pill out of it. Yeah. So you're going to respond. Yeah, your own medicine you're going to be much more responsible for. I myself am learning how to do more distillation to make regular alcohol into medical quality isopropyl at least level, so you can clean cuts and get the bacteria and hygiene together. Basically, you're going to have to do much more than you've ever done in your life. You're going to live a more pioneering lifestyle, and government's not going to be there to help you. And some people I talk to that with think tanks and whatnot, and others that go off record, they're looking at significant population reduction on this thing. And even if you're not reduced out in the population in the first 6 months, if you live through that first 6 months, then the challenges begin, because everything will still have not been reconnected in terms of the economy bringing itself back up to where a supply chain can get reestablished, because the demand won't be there. So a lot of companies will have collapsed at that point because of their stock prices. And you get into this whole feedback loop. And the point short here is you're going to have to take care of you and your families more. And you should get ready for those mental preparation to do that, versus getting caught out one day and thinking, I need to run to the store to get some Band-Aids, and I need to run to the store to get some whatever it is that you don't have. Mm-hmm. Well, 1 million people living in your city are going to be thinking the exact same thing.
Well, a lot of people are saying that you won't survive in cities, most likely anyway. We just did a series with Joel Skousen, and he was talking about that.
Was he? Yeah. Tell me, what did he say about the cities then? I'm curious.
Well, according to him, he brings in scenarios of nuclear war and things like that too, which he says is 100% chance. And I don't know if anything's 100% chance, but he really sees that. And that, the problem with his recommendations, and to some degree yours and anybody's, is that you can't have absolutely no money and no resources and no knowledge and do this stuff very well. But he says you can't be in cities. because, they won't be survivable, basically. And he says if you're in one temporarily for work, try to commute from the edge of it so that you can leave and have an additional outside place to leave. But even that is challenging if you have no money. So there's some holes in the recommendations, in my opinion. But, he's saying be on an organic farm, grow everything yourself, manufacture everything, learn all the skills that everybody's lost. And it seems that, the way most societies are now, there's the lowest real skill level of any time in recent history of the general population. And so his advice is get all that back and do it instantly. He thinks we've got 5 years, maybe. So I don't know how that correlates with what you're saying.
Well, the first significant food crop losses that we envision that will take down the global economy, cause civil unrest, bring in the 5G network to use for crowd control, et cetera, will all happen by 2024. So that kind of fits that same timeline there.
Yeah.
Yeah, similarly close, eerily close. And if you have credit card debt, I would try to reduce the credit card debt the best you can, because the banks will be one of the last things functioning. And if you're able to still, at that last minute, use your credit cards to buy stuff, that's great. But if you're already maxed out on your cards and you can't even use your cards to buy anything and you have no cash, you're truly at the mercy of other people, and they are going to take advantage. Human is going to become an animal during this time. So don't delude yourself that people are going to be nice and share food for your kids because you got a family. They're not. They're simply not. Look what happened in Venezuela already. They're trying to, people are starving to death with their children down there, and they're walking up to a functioning farm and, shrimp farming facility and regular vegetable farms and, fruit and nuts. They have armed guards out there that tell them to go away. It's all for export. And they don't care if they starve to death with their kids starving to death in front of the gate. They don't care.
Right.
That's now in this bountiful world. Can you imagine when it gets nasty how people are going to be? There's not. You can walk on my and die. Well, I don't care. It's my food.
Yeah. Joel is bringing up the point that there's not going to be electricity because he sees a nuclear war and an EMP situation happening both. So the banks without electricity aren't going to be doing much. I mean, non-electrified ATMs don't exist as far as I know. And the cards require immediate electrical and internet functional situation. So if the internet's not up, most of these businesses, including banks, won't exist. And he's talking about that quite a bit too. It's so just like if you combine both of your sets of forecasts, it doesn't look extremely optimistic.
Well, if you have a Faraday cage, you'd be able to protect your electronics from that EMP. And imagine if you were one of the only ones that had functional electronics and somebody else was smart enough to have functional electronics in a Faraday cage. You would be your own central communication hub. What would the value be? What would people trade you to be able to talk to somebody else that could relay a message? Like, if you're out at sea, I crewed a yacht for a couple summers, and when we were out, you'd have to actually contact somebody on ham radio that would then call on the telephone, and they would be the intermediary for you that would then,
Right. But in a situation that you just described, there'd only be one person to talk to, so everybody would have to talk to that one other person with the Faraday cage, right?
That's correct. And then there'd be probably a network of people. So if it was me in my town and then, 50 miles or 20 miles over, there's another person, and then 20 miles from them, there's another person, because I can't believe that the entire planet would be that stupid that they would not harden any electrical communications equipment. And I'm sure the governments would have it, and I'm sure they would start broadcasting as well on an emergency network. So imagine if you're able to get some of the emergency transmissions or some of the transmissions on what's happening outside where everybody's totally in the dark and they don't even know what happened or where happened or anything happened, and you're the one who has that information. I mean, how cool would that be to share with people when they're so terrified, and be able to help them to be able to communicate, but also the value that people would trade you to have that communication skill or tool to be able to reach the outside world, and then, maybe find somebody else.
Yeah, so communication skills will become very valuable with the infrastructure to have it like a ham radio based system or something like that.
Yeah, because I can't believe the entire planet would go black. I simply can't believe that. Regionally, yeah, like North America might go down. A part of Europe might go down, but then, all of Asia might still remain intact where it's fully functional with this electrical system, fully functional with the internet. Parts of Africa might not be affected. Can you imagine the twist around where Africa is totally wired still? They were not affected by any of the EMPs and their internet's still functional. And we got Africa and parts of Asia that are still running on the planet, and other parts are dark. So if you were able to communicate somehow with ham radio, like 3 or 4 jumps over into Africa and get somebody on the net, you can still even broadcast transmissions, cryptocurrency with key to key, and that could be a service in itself too,
Yeah, interesting. So I think in the 60s, when I was in the university, they used to have a saying, some of the peace-oriented people were saying, what if they gave a war and nobody came? And a lot of the wars that are ramping up right now, it's because everybody does come to the war and participate. But if consciousness were to change and people said, well, maybe it's not really brilliant to all fight and kill each other, that could affect the outcome in a positive way if there was a way to spread that, right?
Well, maybe the sun's spreading it for us because these electromagnetic changes in the sun are also affecting us electromagnetically. The way we think, the way we perceive things now, it's just changing.
Yeah.
So maybe the sun will do it for us, and then the wars will stop, and people will be more focused on the day-to-day tasks and drop their weapon and really pick up a shovel because they need to grow some food. Right. I don't got time to fight. I need to go feed my family.
I mean, without the change in consciousness, no ham radio is going to be good enough. There has to be a desire to, like a remembering that we're something more than just little units fighting each other about who's right and who's going to win, who's going to live and everything. It's a good time for a change like that.
It is, and I still don't understand how people don't see that you're part of the divine spark, and I am too, that we're still part of the same one. Everybody believes in some God in a way, shape, or form. At least most people do. I'm not going to say all, but most. But they're still fighting over which one of those gods is the correct one, but it's all just one. So I just still can't get it how they brainwashed everybody who believes there's only one true God, that we all believe it's the same one. That's a term for a God. The unified field force or whatever, that all-time space consciousness, whatever you want to call it or term it.
Yeah.
But we're still fighting over that same one. That's the right, it's the same one that everybody's fighting about, the same one. I still don't, it has baffled me since I was young, how the governments can get that across to people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a microcosm of it is the warming people versus the cooling people. Instead of just being interested, you might have some information that I don't know about, we just want to both find out whatever's true. They don't take that approach usually. They just want to show that the other side is completely evil and wrong and idiots, and enemies, this enemy fighting conflict paradigm for everything. That could change. There's no rule that we have to keep on that.
Yeah, that's why I like to have the conversations with people who do believe in warming, because, they might have that nugget that I don't know about of truth out there. Because there's truth within their argument. It's not, there's truth within it. It's just the way it's been manipulated. So, I mean, what do they know about that? That maybe they read some papers.
Exactly. Everybody's done different research and explorations and stuff. And a test of it is, well, what if the worst thing in the world happened for the global warming people and the global cooling people were right, or vice versa? What's the priority, to find out what's true or to prove that you're right? And I wonder how many people would do well on that test.
I would go for the truth, because everybody would understand the cycles, and then we no longer could be manipulated, cold or warm. Yeah. Because once you understand the true workings of the cycles, then you'll also understand that it'll take away that whole layer of, we could have free power this whole time, and we've been relying on these guys put up all these cables and forced us to pay for electricity and fight wars over oil, and we didn't need any of that because of this plasma density around us.
At least for 100 years, it's been perfected.
At least 100, yeah. But I mean, how many layers of the onion can that scrape back once people realize it's not, forget the cooling and warming, it's just about how the universe operates and what's out there for power that we could be utilizing. Yeah. And then stripping those layers back, and then down into the banking below the mining and the finance and the oil, there's that whole banking layer too. And like, really, what kind of change can be made if everybody on the planet understood all of that and you started scraping away those different layers. At that point, then true change would come.
Yeah. So the attitude is first. We have to be open to learning. Huh?
Always.
Okay. Well, we got another 10 hours to talk about this, I'm sure, but maybe we could do some more when we get time. So I should let you go to sleep for a while.
Oh, I'm good. I'm a night owl for now because I'm trying to readjust my sleeping. I'm heading off to the Czech Republic. It's 9 hours difference from here.
Wow.
So even if I go to bed at 9 a.m., it'll still be just midnight over there in a couple of days when we're going.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to, get my body clock somewhat adjusted a little bit.
You're going to have to recover after you get there, I think.
Yeah, we'll spend a little time in Prague just enjoying. And, I do want to say one thing, and that's good that I brought up Prague, is because inside the city, one of the things I want to do a little small documentary on is the amount of springs that are still flowing. There's several that have been flowing for more than 1,000 years unimpeded that have never broken the water flow.
Yeah.
Now, there's others that have been interrupted, but one thing got me is that city has never cut those off for the people. Free water for everybody from the earth, really energetic water. But, you step back into the States and we ripped all of our rail lines out of the cities. We cement over the springs, so you're reliant on buying water from a city or getting it from a bottle out of a store. And I just found that so fascinating that there's still flowing spring water all across the cities that's real drinkable. So I want to, compare that. Yeah, what we have in the States, what's been taken away, especially public transport, but the water too, and then what they have over there. So
that's going to be interesting. Maybe you can let us know what you find out. It'd be nice to stay in touch.
Yeah, we'll do. I got a guy over there I contacted who's going to help me. He knows I like more of the ancient history type of stuff. So he said he's got a couple secret spots around Prague to take us to. So
yeah, good. Any real good history teachers? I'm always looking for those because real history is being buried. Do series with them or something on the air as long as we can. So
yeah, it's all about the knowledge, sharing it out too.
Have a good night tonight. Nice rest.